His fighting style mirrored his personal life, as he was a free-spirited, wild swinger. He lived life on the edge, flying planes without a license, smoking Cuban cigars with solid gold lighters, and dating women, both young and considerably older. And when his mop-top haircut had some teenage fans mistake him for one of the Beatles, he became known as Oscar Bonavena was born on September 25, 1942, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, the seventh of 9 children born to Italian immigrants. My parents came from Italy, Bonavena said. My ancestors were gladiators in Rome. Oscar quit school at the age of 11, working a variety of odd jobs like pizza delivery, Coca-Cola salesman, butcher, and stonecutter. At the age of 14, he wandered into the Huracan Boxing Club and found his calling. Oscar lost his first amateur bout but became a national champion in only 3 years, compiling a 46-2 record with 36 by knockout. But his amateur career was cut short when he took on American Lee Carr in the Pan American Games. Behind on points, Bonavena gave a new meaning to the phrase hungry fighter as he bit into Carr's shoulder, neck, forearm, or nipple, depending on the news report. Matchmaker Teddy Brenner later tried to rematch Carr with Bonavena as professionals, but Carr refused. "The only way I'll fight him again is if he has all of his teeth pulled," Carr said. Despite Oscar's bizarre behavior, he impressed restaurateur and boxing manager Jack Singer enough to be brought to New York to fight professionally. The now married Bonavena arrived without his family, and Singer set him up in a small apartment while giving him a stipend to get by while he trained. But Bonavena complained about not getting paid enough and missed his wife, Dora. Singer acquiesced to the demand, sending for Bonavena's wife, but upon her arrival, she immediately demanded larger living quarters. Bonavena slowly learned English, and Singer discovered that Oscar's 2 favorite words were, quote, "gimme money." Singer soon grew tired of Bonavena's demands and sold his contract to optometrist Marvin Goldberg, a one-time college boxer who wanted to be in the fight game. "I didn't want to sell the clown to the doc," Singer said. "I did everything to talk him out of it. I even called his wife. But no, he was dying to be burned." Goldberg spoke Spanish, which helped, and he set up Bonavena to be instructed by Charlie Goldman, the legendary trainer of Rocky Marciano. Goldman was initially impressed by Bonavena. "This guy is a better boxer than Rocky was at the same stage of his career," Goldman said. But Rocky was a better puncher. Bonavena became a headliner at Madison Square Garden in his 6th fight, unheard of in the day. But in his 9th fight, he bit off more than he could chew against the crafty Zora Folley. The veteran gave Bonavena a beating over 10 rounds, knocking him down in the 8th. New Yorkers didn't care for Bonavena's boorish personality, and he returned to his native Argentina, where he could do no wrong. He parked his car wherever he pleased and was under no obligation to obey speed limits. He notched 14 fights into the win column, including a decision victory over the popular Gregorio Peralta for the Argentine heavyweight title. Bonavena then returned to New York and took a majority decision against the always rugged George Chuvalo. He began to rise in the rankings, but trouble emerged in the gym. Goldman was having enough of Bonavena's flippant attitude, with the language barrier being just one of the many problems. Charlie would tell the interpreter what he wanted Oscar to do, trainer Sid Martin said, and the guy would tell him something else, or Oscar would do what he pleased and blame the interpreter. Bonavena saw the elder Goldman as a feeble-minded old dreamer. The fighter didn't show up for sparring sessions, numerous workouts were called off, and on one occasion he showed up to the gym chomping on hot dogs. Goldman realized that Bonavena was a far cry from Marciano. The Rock was willing to sacrifice all of life's pleasures to become heavyweight champion of the world, while Ringo would sacrifice nothing. Instead, Bonavena bilked Dr. Goldberg for airplane tickets, car rentals, phone and restaurant bills, and unneeded boxing equipment. Goldberg eventually had to sell part of his ownership to a syndicate which consisted of a stripper, a jockey, and an assortment of other investors, who all eventually came up empty in dealing with Bonavena. Despite the headaches, the strongman heavyweight did show promise when he took on the undefeated Olympic champion, Joe Frazier.
Round is almost over. Frazier was the only American to win a gold medal in the 1964 Olympic boxing championship. And Frazier is down. 7. He's taken the mandatory 8 count. Frazier was down from a short right. We've got more than half the round to go. Frazier down again. He's got to take the mandatory 8 count. 5, 6, 7, 8. One more knockdown and Frazier will be out of it. Bonavena has a cut over the left eye. Bonavena is cut over the left eye. 1 minute to go in the round. Frazier comes back with a good left hook. Neither boy is worried too much about defense in this one. Black trunks, Joe Frazier in white. After being knocked down twice and almost out in the second round, Joe Frazier has come back to take charge of the bout. At the end of the bout, we'll have an interview with the winner, and should there be a knockout, we'll have a replay of the knockdown. Hard left hook by Frazier. A hard one. Less than a minute to go in round 5. .45 seconds left as Bonavena is putting on a terrific finish against Frazier. .15 seconds left. Listen to the applause. Bonavena looks at the clock. And there it is, the final bell of what we consider a very fine fight. We'll have an interview with the winner. We'll return to Madison Square Garden and the decision of this fight.
Scores 5 rounds for each boy. Points 7-5. Points favor of Bonavena. The winner by a split decision, Joe Frazier.
Bonavena impressed in the loss, but once again returned to Argentina, campaigning there for over a year before entering an 8-man elimination tournament for the vacant WBA heavyweight title. He drew Karl Mildenberger in the first round, traveling overseas to face the German on his home turf.
Well, Angie Dundee, the roar of the second wild bull of the Pampas, Oscar Bonavena, of course. As I was saying, Angie Dundee hardly needs me to tell him what to ask a fighter, but because our viewers will want to follow what you're talking about in Spanish. Angie, let me presumably lead you. Oscar has never fought a southpaw before. How is he going to make his fight against Mildenberger?
Con Mildenberger tiene pensamiento perché è zurdo.
No, voy a subir arriba al ring. Y lo pienso todo arriba al ring.
No, he says doesn't make any difference. Right hand and left hand is going to go and attack him.
What will be his principal weapon?
¿Qué es la cosa principal que tú usas?
Pegarle.
Hit him. That's all you're going to do. He's going to hit him.
You have often said, Angie, that a left hook is the best blow against a southpaw.
Yo solamente say a vos que la mano sinistra es la mejor cosa para los zurdos. ¿Qué tú piensas?
Esta es buena. Pero con esto lo voy a noquear.
He's going to hit him with the right hand, but flatten him with the left hook.
Ask him how long it's going to take.
¿Cuánto tiempo te bisogna per...
2 meses.
No, per vincere questo combattimento?
Menos de 12 rounds.
It's just going to be less than 12 rounds.
But he doesn't want to state how early.
¿Cuándo es definitivo que round?
Antes de sexto. 6 rounds.
6 rounds, he says.
The 6th round. We wish you bluebirds in the spring, luck on the Pampas, and we hope that perhaps you'll go on into the semifinals.
No knockout, okay.
Thank you, Angie. Thank you, Oscar.
You're welcome.
He then figures the first exchange. There it is. Mildenberger's old failing to come forward. Bonavena may have suckered him. We've got 35 seconds left in the first round, the first knockdown. Mildenberger's old propensity for going down early. But, again, remember, like Patterson, he goes down often and gets up often. We have 20 seconds left in this first round. Mildenberger is definitely hurt, as you heard Angie say. There, but left himself open again. Naturally, the crowd, Mildenberger minded here in Frankfurt, West Germany, got excited. We have 15 seconds left in this, the 6th round of the fight. Correction, the 5th. A minute and a half to go in this 6th round. Crowd awakening to the action. This was the round that Bonavena predicted he would knock Mildenberger out in. Got through to him.
Knockdown.
It's a knockdown. A short chopping right knocked Mildenberger down for the 3rd time in this fight.
He hurt him with that right hand. He definitely hurt him. It definitely was a knockdown. Referee called it right. Knockdown.
Heard Angie in the midst of some confusion here at ringside reiterate my call of a knockdown. Bonavena punishing Mildenberger in this one-sided exchange. 10th round, less than 20 seconds to go. Another good round for Mildenberger. Mildenberger against Bonavena. A left hook. Garrick Mildenberger as he was coming in. This round is over. Nobody heard the bell. Nobody heard the bell. Bonavena went after Mildenberger. The crowd is cheering and booing Bonavena. But he didn't hear the bell. I didn't hear the bell. And Angelo Dundee, did you hear the bell?
I can't hear that bell. There's something wrong with that bell. It's not loud enough. And neither fighter heard the bell. Well, I'll tell you, It's been the strength and the punch has done the job and the awkwardness of Bonavena, and he's a converted southpaw. That's what's messed up Middlenburg. He couldn't figure out which way Bonavena's going.
Quickly, before the bout terminates and before we go back to New York and Jimmy Ellis, your man, may have to fight Bonavena. Is Bonavena too strong for him?
I don't know about that. Jimmy Ellis is a good fighter, and I said this before, egotistically, Jimmy Ellis is going to win it all.
The decision has been announced.
But they didn't give the voting as yet.
They have not given the voting, but they have declared Oscar Bonavena the winner of this quarterfinal match in the World Boxing Association-sponsored heavyweight elimination tournament. The next quarterfinal will be October 28th. Jerry Quarry, who knocked out Billy Daniels in the first round last night, against Floyd Patterson, the 2-fought previously. It's a happy Oscar Ringo Bonavena.
In his next bout, Bonavena once again traveled to his opponent's hometown, this time to face Jimmy Ellis in Ellis's native Louisville, Kentucky.
2-minute mark in round 3. This is round 3, and there you saw it. A hard overhand right that decks Bonavena. Eye on the left side of Bonavena's head, and Bonavena is in trouble. A half a minute to go in the third round. Bonavena holding on. Bonavena against the ropes, holding. Well, they say so many of them. Ellis is a 3-round fighter. We'll find out next round. He certainly got Bonavena in trouble here. Ellis is hurt. The left hook got in there. The left hook got in there and staggered Ellis. You saw it. The bell for round 7, and Oscar comes out swinging. Bonavena in the dark trunks. Ellis in the light. Bonavena is missing. Oh, a good left hook by Ellis. Caught Bonavena as Bonavena was coming into him, and we have the second knockdown of the fight out of nowhere, just when Bonavena seemed to be taking command. Bonavena was coming into that blow, and he's rubbery legged. 5 seconds to go in the round, so Bonavena is safe. That's the end of round 10. Bonavena knows he's got to move and make his move fast. He's been told that by his corner. Ellis was hurt by that blow into the stomach. The right. Ellis is hurt. Ellis is hurt. Bonavena got him with the left, and he is in pain. But he's fighting back, as you saw, with his left and holding on. We're a minute and a half into the final round. And a good left hook by Bonavena. Staggered Ellis. Now Oscar laid himself open for the chopping right that you saw. Again against the left side of his face. We'll be back here. Very close.
Referee Herman
Very close.
Dudrix scores it 56 for Ellis, 53 Bonavena. The winner,
Jimmy Ellis.
Jimmy Ellis.
Jimmy, bring Jimmy over, please. Jim.
After the bout, Bonavena took a chair from his dressing room and sat on it while taking a shower. One reporter described the fighter as uncouth, while another described his fighting style as, quote, a runaway beer truck, paid more for courage than for talent. The rinse and repeat process of returning to Argentina after a loss began again for Bonavena. Top contender Leotis Martin traveled to Buenos Aires for the payday and Bonavena decisioned him over 10 rounds. Zora Folley also made the trip, and Bonavena got a revenge victory over the veteran. Oscar then got another shot at the now heavyweight champion Joe Frazier, eager to show that the first fight was not a fluke.
Ever since that defeat, Bonavena has been screaming for a return match, claiming the 2 knockdowns he scored should have won the decision for him in their first meeting. But this time, the heavyweight championship is on the line, and Oscar Bonavena is the only man to have floored Smoking Joe in his entire professional career. Bonavena gets away from the ropes. He wants to try to stay in the center of the ring. In rounds 2 through 4, Bonavena boxed smartly, scoring with sharp jabs, and avoided Frazier's rushing. Here in round 5, Oscar is slightly ahead on points, but Joe is coming on strong. Joe's got Oscar pinned against the ropes. Oscar comes back with good sharp punches, and then ties Joe up. A left-right by Oscar, and Joe comes right back. It's very dangerous for Oscar to keep his back against the ropes against this Joe Frazier. Joe seems to be picking his spots here in round 5. Only 2 men have been able to go the full distance with Frazier since Joe turned professional about 4 years ago. Oscar Bonavena was the first, and then Scrap Iron Johnson managed to hang on for the distance 6 months later. Other than those 2, every other man that stepped into the ring with Smoking Joe went home early. They included Billy Daniels, Eddie Machin, Doug Jones, Buster Mathis, and 6 months ago, Manuel Ramos. All were stopped by this rampaging Joe Frazier, who hates to leave them standing. Good punches by champion Joe Frazier. A good left uppercut by champion Joe Frazier, and Oscar comes right back with 2 punches of his own. Oscar Bonavena, a bull of a man. A tremendous left hook by Joe Frazier. A left uppercut by Joe Frazier. They don't seem to faze Oscar. Frazier keeping the pressure on Oscar Bonavena. But rounds 9 through 13 were all Frazier, with Joe punching away at the defensive-minded Bonavena. Here in round 14, it's still anyone's fight, as Joe has been unable to get in that one big KO punch he's always looking for. Frazier pinning Bonavena against the ropes. Both fighters seem to be very tired here in round 14. Oscar still keeping his right hand high, but getting a good right from champion Joe Frazier. Oscar comes back with a right that misses. Frazier pins Oscar right back into the corner. Bonavena established himself as the leading challenger for Frazier's heavyweight title with solid wins over Billy Daniels, George Chuvalo, Carl Mildenberger, Zora Folley, and Leotis Martin. Oscar has won 37 out of 40 fights, never has been knocked off of his feet, and has 28 knockouts to his credit. If he goes the route tonight, he will have finished 25 full rounds with Joe Frazier, a man who, even at this early stage of his career, is being compared favorably with Rocky Marciano. Vote for champion Joe Frazier, and it's a very happy champion who congratulates Oscar Bonavena for the fine effort that pushed Joe to his limits. The only question remaining in the minds of fight fans all over the world is what's going to happen when Smoking Joe gets into the same ring with retired champion Muhammad Ali.
Bonavena started slow but finished strong, an effort that was too little, too late, as he lost a decision. I hit his chin so much that my hands ached for 6 months, Frazier said after. Bonavena repeated his same pattern, returning to Argentina and campaigning there for over a year and a half until getting the call to face Muhammad Ali at Madison Square Garden. Bonavena showed no respect for Ali during the build-up for the fight, predicting an 11th round knockout. At the press conference, Bonavena went on a rant, calling Ali a black kangaroo and a maricon, a Spanish slur for a homosexual. He said Ali was a chicken for not going to Vietnam. Ali was visibly angered by Bonavena's remarks, but dismissed him as nothing more than a stepping stone for a fight with Frazier. "He's talking too much," Ali said, "and I just don't like a fighter who talks too much." Writer Ed Levitt didn't think too much of Bonavena's chances, calling him the Great White Hopeless. But Bonavena's new trainer Gil Clancy was confident, particularly after finding out that Ali had over 12 rounds of sparring the day before the fight. Clancy thought that meant that Ali was unsure of his own physical shape. Ali...
I like you. Just talk. I told chicken because you nervous. That's all.
Just talk.
Fight it. Fight it. You champion. I understand.
Thank you.
I hope you can understand what Ringo was saying.
Nice time.
He said, "I'm sorry I called you chicken. You are a great champion." And you can see the scene
and I
now.
want to say he's my roughest fight today.
Okay.
You champion.
That does it.
I'm sorry.
Joe Frazier, Oscar said I'm champion, so watch yourself.
You don't have to apologize.
Watch it. You win, you Frazier, because you're better. You boxing very well. Frazier,
Ringo is saying
go.
Ali will
Maybe
beat
you win
Frazier,
Frazier.
but that's going to
Because
have
you
to
will
be
beat-
proved in
you
the
will
ring.
beat Frazier.
Thank you.
Because I sponsor on the Frazier.
Thank you.
You understand?
Thank you. I love you, Oscar.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
He invited me to dinner too and said to me, "Thanks, because by boxing with him, he won the biggest purse of his life." But the influx of money didn't help Bonavena in his personal life, as he separated from his wife. "She no like me," Bonavena said. "I no like her, so she say bye-bye." Shortly after the fight, Bonavena attacked his brother-in-law as he tried to defend his sister from the fighter. The subsequent legal proceedings forced Bonavena to bow out of a scheduled bout with George Foreman. Oscar remained relatively inactive for the next 2 years, postponing fights at the last minute and becoming a headache for promoters. He then hooked up with promoter and manager Lauren Cassina, a Canadian fight promoter who thought he could put Bonavena back on the right track. But Oscar remained incorrigible, attacking a tourist who was vacationing in Argentina. A fight with Jerry Corey was signed and canceled as legal troubles once again tied up Bonavena. He finally showed up for a big fight, this go-around against Floyd Patterson, but lost a decision. 2 years later, he faced Ron Lyle in what was considered to be his last chance. Bonavena, once again, lost a decision. He put up a modest win streak against journeyman opposition before signing to face Ken Norton in 1976, and once again pulled out of the bout at the last minute. Writer Jack Welch was upset with Bonavena's penchant for pulling out of fights, stating, quote, "We have always suspected that the Latin brawler has concrete between his ears." Oscar is a mortal lock to win the NPPA award, the National Promoters Pain in the Ass Award. Bonavena continued playing musical chairs with managers and trainers. Lauren Cassina dropped him after Oscar refused to go to New Mexico for a fight. Trainer Jimmy DiPiano remained as his last holdout until Bonavena moved to Nevada to live at the Mustang Ranch brothel with new managers Joe and Sally Conforte. Joe Conforte was a cab driver in Oakland who pimped prostitutes for servicemen before moving his operation to Nevada. He converted a trailer into a house of ill repute, moving from county to county before local sheriffs could get a bead on him. Joe's wife Sally took over as Bonavena's manager, promoting his bout against Billy Joyner on February 26, 1976, with the headline of The Beauty and the Beast. Bonavena weighed in at an overweight 218 pounds and looked sluggish throughout the fight. Reporters asked if his heart was still in the sport. "It's neither young or old," Bonavena said, pointing at his chest. "It's the flame. When the flame is okay, the fighter is all right." Bonavena then married Cheryl Ann Ribideau, also known as Buffy, one of the prostitutes in the brothel. But the marriage was annulled 10 days later as Oscar began an affair with Sally Conforte. The 59-year-old madam was 26 years Bonavena's senior. She was overweight with high blood pressure and diabetes, limping around the brothel on swollen legs. But Oscar seemed smitten with the older woman, taking her to restaurants and clubs, showing her off. Sally responded to the attention by losing weight, dropping from a size 16 to a size 12. "As soon as he moved into my house," Joe Conforte testified, "he got real chummy with my wife." Meanwhile, Joe moved the Mustang Ranch to a new $1 million fortress, heavily promoting a grand opening. But Oscar was front and center on opening night. As the guests were coming in, Joe Conforti testified, Bonavena had one of my big cigars in his mouth, and he was telling everybody, "How do you like my new joint?" Joe found out that Sally was taking $400 to $500 at least every other day from the brothel till and giving the money to Bonavena, who gambled it away. Later, Joe and Oscar had words at the brothel, with the pimp holding a gun to Oscar's head before ordering him to leave. Joe was upset over confirming Oscar's intimate relationship with Sally. He was also angry that Bonavena was talking as if he were about to take over the brothel. The ranch was now in Sally's name, and Oscar wanted in. If he ever comes back on the premises, Joe told bodyguard Willard Ross Brymer, kill him. Joe later testified that he asked Bonavena to leave Reno and gave him enough money for a plane ticket back to New York. Instead, Oscar drank and gambled the money away, spending the night at the Sundowner Hotel. He reportedly received a phone call that Saturday morning and stormed out of the casino. Joe testified that Sally told him after the shooting that Bonavena called her at 4:30 a.m. that morning. He was drinking and had her gun. "I'm going out there and I'm going to shoot Joe," Oscar allegedly told Sally, "and I'm going to shoot everyone in sight." Bonavena arrived at the ranch's front gates around 6 a.m. What happened next wasn't clear. There was testimony that Oscar demanded to see Joe Conforti. Some believe that he wanted only to recover his passport from the trailer. What is certain is that bodyguard Joe Coletti was standing at the gate when he saw Bonavena crouched down behind his car. Coletti then heard someone yell, "Freeze," and a shot rang out. He turned and saw Brymer holding a high-powered rifle. Brymer was 6'3", 230 pounds, with an exotropic eye which deviated 40 degrees to the right. One writer described that it gave him almost peripheral vision, and he was surely a bad shot, which a detective later disputed. Oscar was shot directly in the heart, dying instantly. His body was then moved so no firm conclusion could be made as to where the location of the shooter was. It was estimated that Brymer shot Bonavena from no more than 50 feet away. Joe Conforti got into a shouting match with the arriving police, pointing at Bonavena's dead body, saying, quote, "So we got a dead man here. So what?" The investigation was botched from the beginning, as Sheriff Robert Del Carlo insisted that he handle the investigation himself without help from the state. A brothel security guard named Lloyd McNulty admitted to placing a .38 caliber snub-nosed pistol beneath Bonavena's body, post-mortem. Police later found another pistol inside Oscar's boot. Both guns were registered to Sally Conforti. Inside Oscar's pocket was an envelope with Sally's name written across it, holding a handful of .38 caliber bullets. Oscar had over $6,000 cash on his person. The autopsy showed him testing negative for drugs with an alcohol level of .07. Brymer was arrested, but Joe put up his restaurant, The Cabin in the Sky, as a property bond for getting the bodyguard out on bail. Brymer was charged with murder and, after a mistrial, pled guilty to a charge of voluntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 2 years in the state prison, but released after 15 months. In 1985, Brymer was back in jail for selling Valium to an undercover cop. He was paroled in 1991, and after a brief stint in jail, died as a free man in June of 2000. 4 days after the murder, Sally took over at the Mustang Ranch. She fired all the security guards, tore down the gun tower, and the prostitutes welcomed her with open arms. Meanwhile, Joe Conforti seemed to revel in the controversy. One of his favorite sayings was, quote, "Some good comes from every adversity." In the year after Bonavena's murder, both Joe and Sally were arrested on 10 counts of income tax evasion. Sally was fined $10,000 and given a suspended sentence. Joe filed appeal after appeal before forfeiting $40,000 bail and fleeing to Brazil. In 1983, he cut a deal with federal prosecutors to return and testify against Judge Harry Claiborne of Nevada. Conforti paid Claiborne a $30,000 bribe to stop a voter fraud investigation and $55,000 to get a tax evasion charge dropped. Joe returned to manage the Mustang Ranch after it was auctioned off for $1.5 million, but the corporation that won the auction was represented by the brother of Conforti's lawyer. Joe retired as manager of the brothel in 1991, once again moving back to Brazil. Sally died in 1992, succumbing to diabetes and bad kidneys. Joe didn't attend her funeral and remained in Brazil until dying in March of 2019 at the age of 93. 3 days after the murder, Oscar's brother Vicente arrived in Reno. He immediately broke into tears at the sight of his brother's lifeless body. "I'm not here to make trouble," Vicente said, "just to pick up my brother's body." Ringo played the role of a braggart. Raul Gorosito, Oscar's former sparring partner, said, "He always had the biggest shining car with a Havana cigar dangling from his mouth, always walking as though the world strode with him." All that was a great lie because the real Bonavena was only known by a few, and it is that memory he left us. Over 150,000 mourners filled a stadium for Oscar's funeral. The headline for a Buenos Aires news magazine read, "A bullet stole his life, but not the legend."